one of the things that I fundraise for is a dedicated college success advisor. Her only job on our campus is to get our girls to and through college. So starting in 6th grade, she starts doing career exploration with girls. She starts having meetings with parents. We have them in a bilingual setting if that's what needs to occur. We make those parents very comfortable with the idea of their precious daughter, who they thought was going to maybe stay here and help support their family, can actually do better if she goes to a 4-year university and comes back and helps.
Hi, I'm Jessica McCoy here at Raising Midland, a podcast for parents in the Permian. Today I have my really good friend Kate Williamson from the Young Women's Leadership Academy here in Midland. Now, she serves as 2 different roles for this organization. I'm really excited to get into it. Kate, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about YWLA. So
I'm really excited for you to be here. So one of the reasons why I brought you on is because we're doing a huge school push this, I guess you could call season. We're talking to Dr. Stephanie Howard with MISD. We're talking to the principal at the Carver Center, Stephanie, and we're talking to you. And the reason for that is because of what's going on in the news. School choice is a big deal for parents. So, our podcast is really for parents that might be in Midland already or might be moving to Midland. And the hope is to really shed light on what's available. So let's get into that. So tell me a little bit about you, and then we'll get into your role at Young Women's Leadership Academy.
yeah, great. Well, thanks again for having me. I'm a long time listener, first time caller. So I'm really glad to be
I feel like
here.
we're on Delilah.
I know, right? Should we whisper into
Delilah.
I am, like you said, the development director for the Young Women's Leadership Academy. I've been in this role for 3 years, and my career actually started in political fundraising and advocacy.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah,
Are we talking DC or are we talking Austin?
DC, Austin, all of the above. So I went to Texas Tech University and majored in Spanish and political science, and was able to do an internship in Austin and then an internship in Washington, DC. I worked in Kay Bailey Hutchison's press office, which is actually really cool and a full circle moment, because in 2001, when I was working in her office, the No Child Left Behind Act passed, and she was integral in putting a provision in there that made single-sex schools legal in the public school environment. So that paved the path for schools like YWLA to be open. So I did that. I did a little bit of political fundraising. I had some babies. My husband's job moved us to Midland 10 years ago, and I was still doing political work. And then the opportunity came to help volunteer to bring this school here, which I was immediately very much on board for. And then a few years ago, they made the position that I have now, which is the development manager, which means I do things like this. I go out and tell everyone about the school. I raise funds for enhancement programming, and I really just educate. We're an MISD school. We are part of MISD. Our students are MISD students. Our teachers are MISD teachers. So we're sort of like the best of both worlds in that we're a public school environment, but we're a unique choice for parents in Midland.
Okay, so let's get into that. I actually didn't know that Kay Bailey Hutchinson was part of the reason for us having, I guess school choice, but also based off of we can do it for girls. We can also have different types of schools within any sort of school district in the state of Texas. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about, kind of working for somebody like YWLA. That's kind of a niche thing. So is this kind of important to you? How did you get inspired to want to work with an all-girls school other than just being a female yourself?
Right. So I actually benefited from an all-girls education in high school. I went to a school called the Hockaday School in Dallas, and I was from a very small town, Vernon, Texas, and my parents saw that it would be a good investment for me to go to Dallas, live at the school, and get a world-class education. And it really broadened my horizons to different people, different cultures, different political views, and it really was instrumental for me. So when I heard that MISD was looking for this type of choice school, I actually went to lunch with Dr. Elise Kale and Dr. Jennifer Seibert and talked about it. And I was all in. That was in 2017.
Wow. Man, there's nothing better than actually being able to speak to what you represent.
Right.
Because it affected you.
Right.
I know that there's a ton of research about the benefits of being in the same type of school environment based off of gender. And I know that I have a couple of friends that went to Hockaday as well. And just the way that they speak about what that was like, man, I wish I could go back in school and try it again myself. So let's get back. Let's just go down to the
Okay.
basics. Let's talk about what is the Young Women's Leadership Academy.
Okay. So the Young Women's Leadership Academy is a partnership between the Young Women's Preparatory Network, which is a nonprofit in Dallas, and Midland ISD. So in the legislature in 2017 passed a bill called SB 1882, which allowed for nonprofit entities to partner with local school districts for innovative schools. And so it happened in the legislature. The leadership at MISD at the time said this could be really interesting. It could be interesting for our innovative schools. It could also be interesting for our turnaround schools. So schools that were failing that maybe needed to partner with someone to turn around. And
Mhm.
so at the time, there was sort of a call for schools. The network came to the table and said, hey, we want to open up a school in Midland. We went through a process. I went down to Austin to TEA to testify that MISD was ready for this. And here we are. And so it was sort of a process. It took about 3 years to get it established, and the school opened in the 2019-2020 school year.
Wow. So I'm actually a product myself of one of those schools that was failing
Yeah.
that brought in, I don't actually, I need to probably go look back, but I couldn't find anything
Hmm.
currently, but I still know the principal. But my middle school was similar. I went
Hmm.
to Fulmore Middle School in
Okay.
Austin, which was a failing Title IX school
Hmm.
in Austin. And basically the kids there were not getting the type of resources that they need. And
Right.
so Fulmore, which is, I guess, it had a nonprofit portion of it
Hmm.
where we added in magnet programs. So we focused a lot on humanities and pre-law like track.
Right.
So we had actually a lot of attorneys come in and help us develop our
Oh,
curriculum.
cool.
And I was able to, I was able to get ahead in my English.
Hmm.
So by the time I graduated from middle school in eighth grade, I was already on a sophomore level and could have
Oh,
taken the AP
wow.
exam my, sophomore year of
That's
high school
incredible.
for AP 3, I think is what English. So it was really, I understand the benefits of having just kind of a different type of an
Hmm.
education. And then also being able to interact with like a regular school, public school
Right.
education, but then also being able to have that magnetized type program. I don't know if magnet is what they call it nowadays,
Right. It's
but
word choice school,
more
really,
choice
but
school.
yeah.
Okay, so different type of language, I guess.
Hmm.
But it was very interesting to me because I was able to fully understand a little bit more about myself prior to going into school.
Right.
And my mom being she was actually a principal for the Idea Academy in
Okay.
Austin, and so I can understand from her perspective as a parent why that would be beneficial.
Right.
So, what type of kids are apply? Do you have to apply
So
to?
there is an application process, and I'm really glad you asked this question because it is one of the biggest misconceptions that we have. So people think that, and I will start with Midland has tons of choices. We love Carver, we love ECHS, MHS. My son's at MHS. Like there's so many options within MISD, and we are very lucky, and people don't know that. And so YWLA is an application process, but it's not a like hard line. If you don't meet this hard line, you won't get in.
Okay.
So you don't have to test into GT to get
Okay,
into
so
YWLA.
Carver, for people who don't know, for Carver,
Right.
you have to be recommended,
Right.
and then
They do universal screening now.
okay, I
So
didn't know that.
yes, so yeah, the MISD has
Okay,
started that, which is
I
awesome.
saw that actually on Facebook Moms, like one of the moms
Yeah.
groups, because there was, it seems to be a little bit of confusion.
There is confusion. They just started it, but
Okay,
it's
well,
great that they're doing it.
this is
But you
helpful.
still have to pass. Like you still have to
Yeah.
like everybody takes the test, but you still have to pass. And so that is not what we do at YWLA.
Okay.
Ours is more of a holistic approach. So we look at a lot of it is we meet the girl. She comes to campus with her family. We interview her. We want to make sure that this is something that she wants to do and not that her
Mhm.
parents are pushing her to do. There's an essay about what you like to do, what you like to read. There are teacher recommendations that come from their prior teachers. Of course, there are test scores.
Mhm.
There are attendance records. Like we want to make sure that you're coming to school and that you're committed to coming to school because coming to school is part of what makes
Yeah.
school successful. And so we sort of put that all together and we look at what would be the best fit for our campus. And we're absolutely not for everyone, but we are for a lot of girls. And for the girls who we are for, we are a special place where they can learn and they can grow. But we have girls from all different elementary schools, public, private. We have some girls who came in from homeschool. We have girls who are on 504 plans. We have girls who are English language learners who we graduate out of the TELPAS system, which is the English language learner test that you have to take. So that's a big misconception, is that, you have to be GT and you have to have mastered the STAR, but that is not the case at all. And our data tells that story. And we just can't really share that data because of FERPA, but we have all types and everything in between.
Okay, that's so interesting because upon first impression, even though I understand the
Right.
purpose of, a different type of education,
Mhm.
school choice, I was kind of concerned too. I was like, man, like, any sort of application process, I think sometimes people are like, there's no way I'm going to be able to
Right.
get in.
Especially in Midland, because everything is
Mhm.
so competitive here. But
Yes.
yes, that is not the case. I mean, with some rare exceptions, if you complete the application fully and you have decent teacher recommendations and you
Mhm.
show that you don't go to school and like you don't get in trouble, like you're gonna be given a chance. Now, you may get to YWLA and be like, okay, this is not for me. And that happens too. There's, we a lot of girls want to do programs that we can't offer because we're really small. And that's okay. There's lots of choices in this community. And that's
Right.
what I like to say is like we are a choice. We are an option. We might not be for everyone, but we're for the girls we're for.
That's so interesting. I think it's such a niche, right?
It
Like,
really is.
so it kind of sounds like you guys are STEM focused. Like, what is? I mean, that might not also be
No, it is.
the
Yeah.
case. Okay,
It is.
I'm really big on challenging what we may have conceptions of.
Right.
Like preconceptions are really important to challenge. So, how did this all get started? Because it seems like it kind of came down the line from like a STEM education who started it. So,
Right.
was there someone who kind of woke up one day and said, you know what, I really want to do something for girls in STEM?
Yeah.
And they saw that there was a gap in like career opportunity. How did all this get started?
Well, I think if you look holistically at women in STEM fields, especially here in the Permian Basin, women are historically underrepresented for a lot of reasons. And I'm not a behavioral scientist, and I can't get into all of that. I would love to learn that, but there's not enough hours in the day. Um, I do think that, from my perspective, what I learned is, and this may not be the founder of the network, but I do know the Posey family. He was a very successful businessman in Dallas.
Hmm.
He saw his mother struggle because she did not have past a third grade education. And so
Wow.
when he made money, he said, I'm going to write this. I'm going to make sure that a good education is not a barrier to everyone, not just families that can afford private
Mhm.
school, but I want to make this type of education available to everyone. And so he scoured the nation. He found some really high powered educators in Dallas. He worked with Liza Lee, who was the headmistress at Hockaday when I was there.
Cool. Small
And
world.
right, yeah. And so, and it's my life is like totally full circle right now. But they really focused on the STEM education and got leaders who could really program that to women. Our current CEO of the network, Lynn McBee, was a biomedical scientist
Wow.
in her previous life. And so it's really just, he got the people together and he said, I want to do this and I'll fund it. And his family, he's since passed, but his family continues to fund the network and the work it does at the now 11 schools across the state of Texas that
Okay,
they
so
have.
wow, I didn't realize that you guys had all those
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
So how big, like, is it just kind of in Dallas or have you guys?
All over. So, and Midland is actually, once you start naming off where the other schools is, people are like, "Wow, we're really." I mean, it's really good that a town our size has one of these schools, because you're looking at school in Dallas, a school in Balch Springs, a school in Houston, a school in Aldine, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, El Paso, Lubbock, and us, and Fort Worth. And so, really, if you look at that ecosystem, like we're one of the smaller communities to be able to have one of these unique choice schools.
Wow, that's so neat. Okay, so why Midland?
Why Midland? I think that a few years ago when we did the District of Innovation and they were looking at, innovative ideas to bring to Midland, Midland sort of has the innovative entrepreneurial spirit. And
Mhm.
I think there were a lot of people who were like, let's try it out. Let's see what we can do. And so that was sort of part of like an RFP process. They did a
Mhm.
call and they said, hey, if you have a unique school out there that you're doing and has a successful model, bring it on, bring it to see if we can do it here. And so the Young Women's Preparatory Network answered that call. It wasn't like YWPN was out looking, they answered a call from MISD to come and start a school in this
Wow.
area.
So MISD reached out and was like, "Hey, this is something we want to provide
Right,
our constituents."
right,
I guess you could call that.
right,
And y'all were like, "Okay, let's do it."
right.
That's so
Yeah,
interesting.
it very much was organic, and it wasn't you know, MISD invited us to the table to be a partner, and we are so grateful for that partnership, and
That's
and continue
fantastic.
to be grateful for the support, because we've had a lot of different superintendents come through,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's hard whenever you have a superintendent who your special niche school wasn't their idea, but we've gotten a lot of support from all the superintendents that we've gone through since then, and continues with Stephanie Howard.
So why a girls only school? I
Yeah,
mean, I'm just thinking of what, I have a boy and a girl too.
yeah.
So, I'm interested in my girl eventually going to Young Women's Leadership
Mhm.
Academy because I understand the benefit of a choice school,
Right.
but also, you know, being an SMU graduate, I know a ton of people that went to Hockaday or
Mhm.
Ursuline, or even the boys' schools that are
Right.
available in Dallas, like
Right.
Jesuit.
Right.
So, why is it so important to like have a school in those fundamental years, especially in high school?
Right. Whew.
Like, I'm sure some of your students are going to listen, but like, you're probably feeling a little awkward because
Mhm.
high school, you feel less awkward than you did in middle school. And so, why is it so important during those, formative years
Right.
to be around your peers? Like, does it reduce stress for girls? What are the benefits?
All of the above. Yes. And I think if you sort of go back through history, you see that um that that especially in some of the religious schools, like Catholic schools, they've separated by sex for many decades. And for a variety of reasons, some of which we may not agree with today, but I think for our girls and the STEM focus that we have, and the leadership focus that we have, is that I'll give student council as an example. Our girls are all of the leadership positions. There's no option other than to be a leader, because it's all girls. So the girl is the president, vice president, secretary, parliamentarian in every single organization. So it gives girls unique leadership opportunities that they may not be confident enough or self-aware enough to get involved at one of the larger comprehensive schools. But I'm like you, I have a boy too. My boy is thriving at Midland High. He's on the Katoika court, which a lot of people who grew up in Midland will know it's the prom court. Like, he's living his best life over there.
Cool.
But my daughter is different. She
Mhm.
would not thrive in that environment. And so I'm not here to say like single sex education is
Mhm.
for everyone, because it's not. But again, for the girls who choose us and who want that, that's who we're for. But there's countless studies that show that girls who have been to a single sex school go on to pursue STEM degrees like at a rate of 6 times higher, because they have the confidence. And just from my standpoint, like me sitting in the same classroom with a middle school boy, like that wasn't the best fit for me. It gave me more confidence. And I say like my who I am today and the confidence that I have today was instilled to me in a single sex environment, because there was no choice but to be a leader and to be confident,
Right.
and there was no embarrassment about speaking up.
Yeah, I mean, you see this with like girls' sports.
Hmm.
There was something that I read in Forbes recently that said about, I think it's like 110 female CEOs within Fortune
Hmm.
500 plus, are actually ex female
Yeah, I
athletes.
believe it.
So, and you think of like what that environment probably looked like for them.
Right,
A lot of them played on a girls' soccer team. I mean, sports don't really mix genders.
right.
So it would make sense that that data would probably be
Be the
reflective for
same.
that for schools.
Yeah, you're
That's
absolutely
really
right.
interesting.
Hmm.
So, what kind of subjects do your students actually learn at
Right.
Young Women's Leadership
So
Academy?
it's all the, standard TEKS aligned things that a kid at one of the comprehensive high schools or
Mhm.
junior highs would have to do. So the course of work to graduate from in a Texas public school is there. Where we are different is that, kids have electives, right? So like you do the things you have to do to graduate. And then if you have extra space, you're allowed electives. And some kids choose to do athletics and some kids choose to do arts. At YWLA, if a girl has, most of the time you have one or two electives. One of those electives is required to be in a STEM field. And so we sort of force you into it, whether you like it or not. And most of the time they end up liking it. And there's a lot of different options. So like just the other day I was walking down the hall and I peeked my head in Miss Betcher's class. She's one of our STEM science teachers. And there was like a crime scene set up. And the girls were
Oh,
like
neat.
analyzing blood splat
Forensic
patterns.
pathology.
There you go. And so
Cool.
that's one of
At a
our
high level, obviously.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so they that's one of our STEM electives. And so whether
Wow.
it be destination imagination, whether it be
Oh, I
Project Lead the Way,
love destination imagination.
coding, I mean, aerospace engineering, like
Wow.
so we offer those, and that's a big part of what I do because those things are expensive.
Yeah, so
And
wait, hold on. Sorry, before
yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt you.
no, you're good.
So I guess where I'm also thinking of too is like if I mean, I'm a taxpayer, so are you.
Right.
So I'm thinking that's great, but who's paying for this?
Right.
Because
So,
like that's wonderful that like you can take forensic pathology,
right.
but being, a dollar and cents gal myself, like I'm also curious, your job is to help fundraise.
Right.
So how does that work with MISD?
Right.
Like how do you guys, and I don't know if you can, speak to that.
I
I'm sure
absolutely
you can, but I just
Yeah,
don't want to
no.
like get you in trouble or anything. But I'm sure it's public knowledge. How does MISD work and how does your job as fundraiser work in order to fund these special like electives even? Because like you said, you're not just going to be able to go on like Amazon and
Right.
find curriculum about forensic pathology.
Right.
Like that's something that you probably hired a special teacher for, or
Mhm.
like you hired in a team to come in and help equip and empower your
Right.
teachers to teach that. So how does that all work with fundraising?
Right. So since we are an MISD school, and this all sort of goes back to the partnership. And so when these 1882 schools were allowed to be, the partnership says like, we're going to do this. And this is what MISD is going to provide. MISD is going to provide our building, our per student funding. They're going to pay our teachers. They're going to do all the things that they would do at a comprehensive school, right? Based on our student enrollment. So we get that per student funding. The network says what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the extra dollars from nonprofits, from corporations, from individuals who believe in this model. We're going to bring that in to enhance what you do at the school. And so the money I raise is for what I call my enhancement budget. And that's
Cool.
for all the extra things that we do at YWLA that wouldn't be at a regular school. We don't expect for the taxpayers to pay for that
Mhm.
because it's an extra bit, right?
Mhm.
The network has committed to that. So the network pays me to come and do the fundraising. They're funding me. I'm not an MISD employee. They pay my salary to come in and raise these funds to enhance what we're doing at YWLA. That was part of the whole partnership and part of the beauty of the innovative partnership that we have. And
Mhm.
so luckily in Midland, it's a very generous place
Mhm.
and people love our model.
That's cool.
Individuals love our model. The foundations love our model. The oil and gas companies love our model, and they're very eager to support what we do. And so I'm not saying my job is easy, but once I get people on campus to be around the girls and see what these funds are going for, they very much understand and appreciate as taxpayers
Mhm.
that we're not getting extra money from the taxpayers. We're actually going out and forming a public nonprofit partnership to enhance the education.
That's wonderful. Because I was noticing, I read a press release recently from you guys about how Diamondback donated, I guess like science kits to learn
The VR headsets.
Yes,
Yeah.
to learn neuroplasticity and like
Yeah.
how the brain works.
Yeah.
And neuroscience is what the press release said.
Right.
But it was studying like how the brain works and how you can learn and how different types of environments can help connect your brain to basically set yourself up for the future.
Right.
So isn't that so indicative of just generally what you guys represent, right? So exposing children to different types of career fields
Correct.
and different type of electives can potentially not only save them time in college,
Mhm.
so you're not the girl who's like switching your major
Figuring
5
out
times.
what you want to do with your life.
Like
Yeah.
me?
Like me. Yeah.
But then also like you're being exposed to different types of environments and different types of like just types of curriculum so
Right.
that maybe college is a little bit easier.
Right.
So what are some of the electives that you guys offer?
So, I mean, Project Lead the Way is sort of the umbrella under which we offer the STEM programming. And so they have coding, they have biomedical science, they have aerospace engineering, we have robotics. Our robotics team is amazing. And MISD has actually really expanded their robotics program.
Yeah, I
which
saw
is
that they were doing. Did you ever watch that show on Discovery Channel? It was like the robots that would fight
like
each other.
yes.
Yes, I noticed that they
That
did.
sort of stuff is happening
Yeah,
in all the MISD
I saw
elementary
that.
schools.
Like I think Legacy High School has
Right.
like a great robotics
They
program.
do, and that is another example of a sort of a private partnership. Like some of the oil and gas companies came together and funded funded that. And so
Wow.
that is the innovation that's happening in Midland. Like, I think everyone can agree, and not to get political, but
Yeah.
public schools in Texas are underfunded, and there's a lot of controversy around that right now.
Mhm.
I think one thing that gives me hope in Midland is that there's a lot of nonprofits and foundations and individuals who are willing to step in and fill that gap.
Yeah.
So it's really a unique space to be in.
My in-laws have been here for 40 years,
Hmm.
and my husband grew up here, my brother-in-law grew up here, and I've lived here now for 9 years. And we always talk about how unique Midland is because we always like personally as a business owner, I own another like this is not my day job.
Right.
This is like what I do for fun. Um and more of like a love letter to Midland,
Hmm.
truly. But I could not do what I do in Dallas because of
Right.
oversaturation. And I don't think, I mean, I'm sure like this type of school in Dallas is doing great too, but
Right.
there's so many other school choices in Dallas.
Right.
Whereas like this is really great because it's truly like there's more focus on your school,
Right.
which I'm hoping like, the oil and gas industry seems to be really giving it the attention it deserves. So not everyone has the chance to be exposed to the education that I think a lot of people in leadership in Midland have,
Right.
right? So how is YWLA closing the gap for children that may be first gen?
Right.
Their parents didn't go to college or, they're going to be the first ones that go to school. So how are you guys, because that's kind of like a big task.
It is.
Okay. Like my biological family, my father, it didn't go to college and my biological mother didn't go to college.
Hmm.
I'm adopted,
Hmm.
but I was adopted into a family that was college educated.
Right.
So I can imagine if my adoption hadn't happened, that it would have been really difficult for me to
Yeah.
navigate going to school and figuring out FAFSA and figuring out all the things. So how do you guys close the gap for families that might be first generation college students?
Right. Yeah. So this is one of the unique things that I really love about the network is we have what's called our to and through college model.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I fundraise for is a dedicated college success advisor. Her only job on our campus is to get our girls to and through college. So starting in 6th grade, she starts doing career exploration with girls. She starts having meetings with parents. We have them in a bilingual setting if that's what needs to occur. We make those parents very comfortable with the idea of their precious daughter who they thought was going to maybe stay here and help
Mhm.
support their family can actually do better if she goes to a 4-year university and comes back and helps. So we start very early. We take the girls on college visits. By the time they're seniors in high school,
Wow.
they will have visited between 15 and 20 schools across
Oh
the
my
state of
God.
Texas.
That's a lot.
Small, large, public, private. They start with UTPB, they go to Tech, then they go through a swing, they go to UT, SMU, Austin College. They see it all. So a lot of the girls, some of them have never left Midland before.
Yeah, I had a lot of my friends in middle school. Like I
Hmm.
told you, I went to that magnet school in middle school. Half of my friends had never left a 5-mile radius from their
Right?
home.
Yeah,
And that's actually the reality of a lot of people.
it is.
And especially with girls, just historically speaking, girls typically have a lot of the family labor that's put on them.
Correct.
So when you are, I can imagine as a parent, if you're like, hey, I
Right.
actually need you
Here.
to
And
help,
it's valid.
that could
It's
be very
legitimate.
scary.
And so we really build relationships with parents and with the girls
Mm.
and really have them own their college journeys, right? And so by the time they're seniors, which our seniors are amazing, and I can't believe they're graduating in a few months.
Is it your first senior
It
class?
is. It's
Wow.
our first graduating class. And so, these are girls who were convinced to come to a school that didn't exist in Midland. They really are pioneers. They say they're the guinea pigs, but we call them the pioneers. Um, but really just building that trust, and you see it paying off now. Our girls, and I think they updated the board yesterday, have earned over $3 million in merit scholarships, and it's
Wow.
February, and there's 30 of them.
Wow.
So I think it just speaks to the to and through.
30 of them?
Yeah,
And
the
there's $3 million worth of merit scholarships.
so far, and we're not done. Like, we're not done.
That's
And
crazy.
so this just shows like this college success advisor is wonderful. She's a resource. She's not doing scheduling. She's not doing mental health counseling. She's just doing college. And
That's
again,
awesome.
that's not something that the taxpayers pay for. That's something that we raise money for because we know that that is super important to our population. And so the statistics for graduation rate across the entire network are 100% graduation, 100% acceptance
Graduation high school.
from high school,
Okay.
100% acceptance to at least one 4-year university. And so And some of them don't go. Some of them go to service academy. Some of them go to, a community college, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But we want to show them that it's not if I'm going to college, it's where I'm going to college. And we start that in 6th grade. So by the time they get to high school, they're ready. And another unique element of our programming is our volunteer and leadership. So we require that our girls volunteer each year the number of hours that corresponds with their grade. So if they're in 6th grade, they're volunteering 6 hours. If they're in 7th grade, they're volunteering 7 hours. So by the time they get to high school, they've already volunteered dozens of hours and
Oh,
they already have a resume built in, which I didn't realize how important this was. But having a senior who just applied to college, a lot of schools look at leadership and volunteer service, and it's just the right thing to do
yeah.
in a community like Midland. So, it's hard to feel sad about your position in life when you're grateful and giving back. And we teach all of our girls that.
That's amazing. Do you have like do you have like corporate partnerships
Oh, yeah.
where you can like get girls exposed to different types of nonprofit
Hmm.
organizations? Like for example, I know the Henry Foundation
Hmm.
is really big into literacy because
Right.
Mr. Henry wrote a children's book.
Right.
Or, look at Diamondback. Diamondback is very into supporting just like Chevron and
Right.
Oxy, their STEM education programs that they have for little kids. So like
Right.
what type of nonprofits are you guys partnering with to make sure that those girls are fulfilling those hours?
Right.
Because it's
So,
one thing to say, like, you gotta
right.
do 6 hours, or if
Well,
you're in 6th grade, but like if you don't have a place that's you're
right.
able to do it, it's hard.
And for the young girls, it's hard because a lot of the nonprofits have rules about age. And so we
Mhm.
try to create a lot of on campus partnerships. One of my
Right.
favorite ones that I work with because I love working in gardens is Exxon helped us revamp our zero-scaped outdoor greenhouse space. And
You have
so
a
we
greenhouse?
do.
That's so
It's
neat.
amazing. And we actually the plants we grow there, we have donated to Habitat for Humanity that are building
Cool.
houses in our neighborhood. And so
Wow.
we really are giving back to the place where our school sits and allowing for our girls, even as young as 6th grade, to come out. And they love working in the garden with me. I mean, they were like, Mrs. Williamson, this is so fun. When are we going to do it again? We were weeding. We
That's
were weeding. We
awesome.
weren't like planting tomatoes. We were
Yeah.
weeding around like yucca plants with big long
Mhm.
gloves on. So that's just one of many examples. But all the major oil and gas companies, Diamondback, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Pioneer when it was, still in existence, ConocoPhillips, all of them. And I'm sure I'm going to miss some and some smaller ones too. ProPetro, like
Mhm.
all of them support us, and all of the local foundations and all of the nonprofits like are beating down our door to get our girls to be volunteers, because we often joke that if there's a volunteer opportunity and we say, no, literally, like, how many girls do you need? Because when we put this out, we will have 100 sign up for it and they will come beating down your doors. Like, they are that committed to service.
That is so
It's
great.
really cool. So if you need volunteers, I'm your girl.
You know what I've been really impressed with too is your athletics.
Mm,
Selfishly, I've been
yes.
following your swim
Oh my
program,
gosh.
which whoever does your swim team, my son's coach at COM used to teach and
Okay.
I guess coach some of the girls
Okay.
because he's on the swim team there. And I've been so impressed by watching y'all's like results
Yeah.
on for state because state is
Yes.
in
Last week, we
it's
just won
last week. I know
second
y'all
place.
did really great. So
Yeah.
the Young Women's Leadership Academy swim team, for those who don't know, did really great
Yeah.
for the school that they're. I mean, the size school, you're basically based off of what size school you are, and
Right.
that's how you compete in state.
Right.
But they did really great, placing second,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's incredible.
It's the first year out. And the even more incredible thing is the majority of that team are underclassmen. We have one senior.
What? That's
Yeah. And
nuts.
so like the future is way bright with that program. And with all our athletic programs, we have tennis, we have cross country, we have volleyball, we have basketball. And so again, it's offering a chance for girls who might not be able to afford to play club volleyball.
Yep.
And honestly, if you don't play club volleyball, it's really hard to make one of
Can we
the
talk?
comprehensive teams.
Yeah, can we talk about how expensive that is? Like,
Right.
swimming was very expensive.
Right.
People don't realize, at least back when I was doing it competitively, our swim program was like very expensive to be a part of because you're traveling to swim meets. You have to buy your racing
Right.
suits. And I'm learning that volleyball, baseball, and football
All
are
the
like
same.
the sports
Yeah.
in Midland.
Right.
And swimming too, because COM's swim program is incredible. Their
Right.
swim team is amazing. But volleyball's a thing
Yeah.
with girls.
It is.
My niece is like trying to get into it, and I didn't know they have like development camps.
Yeah. It's
Like they have
it's
all these things. So that how you're making sports more accessible. And it just kind of sounds like that's just like what your root mission statement is, making education accessible,
right.
making college accessible.
Right.
And with accessibility creates choice,
Mhm.
right? It's one thing to like strong arm a girl and say like, no, you only have two choices. You
Right.
either stay here and, you're kind of doing what maybe for generations your family has done,
Right.
or you either do something that maybe you're not all that interested in.
Right.
But what sounds like you guys are doing is you're really focusing in on the importance of increasing the amount of choices that are available, not only for girls, but just for families in general.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to have school choice because, I think I would hope that most parents view each child holistically within their family because not every child's the
Right.
same. But when you have a boy and girl like you and I do, it's so helpful to be able to have those choices,
It
especially
is.
for a demographic of people in our country who are systematically not given the most amount of
Right.
choices. So that's great that y'all are even doing that in athletics.
It's important to do that across the board, and we will never be a school that focuses solely on academics. It's sort of a piece of the puzzle. It's leadership, it's wellness, it's academics, it's STEM focus. But it's very nice to be able to have that option because it gives girls the opportunity to do something that they probably wouldn't get to do elsewhere. And like you said, two different kids. My son was a Midland High Bulldog and thrived, and my daughter was not interested in athletics, but she's a cheerleader at YWLA. So
That's
it's like,
great.
it's just more choices for more kids.
That's awesome.
And, on the front end, and I'll say, and this is another way I go whole circle, is I was a Spanish major in college. And I get to use my Spanish often because when we're recruiting,
Mhm.
there's a lot of parents who don't speak English.
Mhm.
And so to convince them and tell them, like, this is a place for your daughter, is a really special thing to be able to do, to make it available because, like you said, like, not everybody knows about it, but our principal goes to every single one of the MISD elementary schools, and we do everything we can. We hand out paper applications. We help them with applications. Like, if you want to come to our school, we're going to make it happen.
That's awesome. Now I'm trying to think of also with all of this, just being someone like myself, I would get very overwhelmed with the amount of opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And especially if you're a first gen kid, I can imagine like, oh my gosh, it's like you're speaking a different language. Like,
Right.
actually, if
Yes.
you don't have parents that have gone through it, you like my best friend, for example, she graduated from high school and graduated from college early because she had to pay for everything.
Right.
She had to learn everything
Right.
to how to even apply for FAFSA, how to get financial aid. And luckily she was able to do that and go to Oklahoma State. But I know that burden because she's my best friend and she
Hmm.
shared that,
Yeah.
what that experience was like. So, how are you guys kind of helping your students be well rounded and kind of bringing them down, keeping the pressure off while also having a very clear focus on, hey, girls, like, here are your options. Let's make sure we get into a school
Right.
while not overwhelming them with the stress
Right.
because teenagers more than anything, you have teenagers.
Yeah.
I'm not even there yet with my
Yeah.
kids, but how are you guys balancing that? Are you guys teaching any sort of wellness with
Hmm.
the girls or how are you guys approaching that?
Right. So, as part of the to and through college model, one of the things that our college success advisor starts with, like in sixth grade, is basic language of college, major, university, like the words that we all throw around and we know, but words that their families and they have no idea what they mean. So, we
Hmm.
start very, very basic. And then our goal is to find the best college fit for our girls and their families. And so the families are part of the conversation.
Hmm.
What can you afford? Where do you want to go? Do you want to go far? Do you want to keep her like it's a conversation with everyone. And so that's why it's so important to have that college success advisor to know each one of the girls, have a file on each one of the girls. And as far as health and wellness goes, we really try and offer things for girls. We have a cycle lab, right?
Hmm.
Like it's not just physical education. You can do a spin class. We have yoga
Wait,
instructors
that's so
come.
fun.
Yes, isn't it
Who
amazing?
teaches the cycle class?
So they have a like a screen where they cast like a Peloton or
That
a
is so
some
neat.
sort of yeah, it's so cool.
It's
But
like a
it's like
cycle bar.
it's like Cycle Bar.
Oh my
And I think it
gosh.
actually was sponsored by Cycle Bar when it first opened. But
Neat.
we find ways to get girls invested in their health and wellness in ways that seem attainable to them. So
Mhm.
it's not just doing physical education or running a mile or touching your toes. It's finding how you can be your best self. One of the unique things that we started last year to foster a sense of belonging is we sort the girl into houses, very much Harry Potter style.
Or rice too.
There's
Rice does that
yeah,
as well.
there's very much a lot of research about how that fosters a sense of belonging because a lot of our girls don't have a good home environment.
Mhm.
And so we do this, we sort them into houses. And so the last day of the 6 weeks, when sort of they're done with all the work and we're done with all the instruction, we have what's called house day. And so they
Cool.
rotate around big sis, little sis. We have a motivational speaker come and talk. I think on Friday we had the owner of Ray Atlanta's, which is like the kids
Natalie
consignment.
Nolan, yeah.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial. So we
Mhm.
we allow them to see themselves as entrepreneurs and really focus on their whole self and a sense of belonging within our community.
I think that's super important because oftentimes, I mean, just being our age, like we kind of saw women who were getting into the fields
Hmm.
of, STEM and education and all the different types of careers because it wasn't until like really the late 60s where women were really entering the
Right.
workforce
Right.
heavily. It wasn't until the 70s where women could even open their own bank account and then credit cards.
Right.
And I mean, divorces are still relative without your husband's
Yeah.
permission to be able to file for divorce is
Yeah.
still relatively new in the
Right.
last 50 years.
Right.
So it's very important to not pigeonhole girls and say like, you have to be this thing or you have to be this thing or, there's not any opportunity for upward movement for
Right.
you. It's more about exposing them to what's available and then exposing them to different opportunities.
Right.
But then also you want to keep it in check too because sometimes having a blank piece of paper with all of these
Is
opportunities
overwhelming.
can be very overwhelming.
Right.
So it's important to be able to just look at the whole person. Because I think all too often girls are typecasted
Hmm.
as like, oh, you're the math girl
Right.
or you're the jock.
Right.
And then if you don't fit into what somebody views you, it can be very off putting.
Hmm.
I know specifically for me, excuse me, a lot of female athletes are kind of viewed that way.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
very confusing unless you're not an actual athlete
Right.
with like hanging out with volleyball players. Like I have a really good friend who's a volleyball player who's now a doctor, and Avery, and she's a children's hospital doctor.
Right.
And she was also the best All-American volleyball player. And, her husband played football at Texas.
Right.
And you would look at them, if you didn't know them and you were just a, general population college student, you'd be like, oh yeah, they're jocks.
Right.
But no, like Avery had a 4.0 for all 4 years
Right.
and was also an All-American volleyball player.
Yeah.
All too often, girls are put in boxes. And it's really important to be able to tell girls at a young age, I feel like, that you're not just what you're good at.
Right.
You're also a human being
Right.
because you're also not a machine.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I
And
struggle with that myself.
Same.
So,
Same. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think that the unique thing we have here in Midland is that we show them all the options. And the option may be you don't want to be in the STEM field and maybe you don't like math.
mhm,
And that's okay.
mhm.
But we want to expose them and let them make that choice rather that choice being made for them. And my daughter is a perfect example. She came into YWLA with very weak math skills. Incredible, and she hated math. I mean, hated it. And she has had one of our teachers, several of our teachers, in fact, to sort of figured out the way she learned, were able to track her, and all of a sudden math became very clear to her, and she loves math.
You can't do that in a large
It's
scale
very hard.
school.
It's very hard.
Like speaking from experience too, like I have a 504. I had
Mhm.
504s all the way from second grade into college
Mhm.
because my math requirement and my math was just not there. I have
Right.
learning disabilities. So it's very hard. That's why I chose to go to SMU over the other state schools that I
Right.
was offered scholarship to, like Texas and Texas A&M, because I knew a huge school,
You would
guess who would not go to
you would get
school?
lost. Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
Because it's intimidating for someone like me to be able to go to a math class with 150 kids
Right.
knowing that I'm going to fail.
Right.
Because no one's watching me.
No one's
Right?
shepherding you through that process. And that's the beautiful thing about YWLA is that all the teachers know all the kids' names. And again, this happens at comprehensive high schools too. My son has had a wonderful experience at Midland High.
Cool.
And so we always talk about in our family, don't be light dimmers. Like you don't have to dim someone else's light to make yours shine
Okay,
brighter. And
Brene
so
Brown. I love that.
Yes. I mean, Brene Brown is I love her. But that's how we think of Midland High within the MISD ecosystem. Like And within the education ecosystem in general in
Yeah,
Midland, public, private, homeschool, whatever. Like, you don't have to say something bad about this side to make this
exactly.
side be brighter. And so we work together, we benefit from the partnerships, we share information.
Mhm.
I know that some of our math teachers right now are talking with MISD math folks to try and bring up the bar on some of the middle school math offerings. We work together, and that's what the partnerships were meant to be. It wasn't just us all just taking the per student funding and saying, leave us alone. It's us saying, hey, this is working for us. This might be able to work for y'all too.
It kind of sounds like you also equip and empower your students to advocate for themselves. I think that was the hardest thing for me as someone
Mhm.
who has a 504. You're required by the state to talk to your teachers about your disability, and
Right.
that is humbling.
It's hard.
It's very hard to tell your teacher, hey, by the way, I have a second grade equivalent of my math. Like,
Mhm.
I have not advanced
Yeah.
past that. I wish I could.
Mhm.
My brain cannot do it.
Right.
We've tried everything. But that really, like, it's a hard skill and it's a niche skill that not every child is forced to do.
Right.
So, but I was reading on y'all's website that something that you guys really promote is talking to your students about self advocacy. And,
Mhm.
it kind of sounds like with all of these different support systems through the different, your different support teachers, like your college advisor
Right.
that you have, that they're not only learning that, like theoretically by
Right.
reading, this is what you have to do, and they're also being introduced to it at a young age so that it becomes a part of their vernacular to understand,
Right.
like, what is a major. We knew about that since 6th grade, so it's less foreign to us when we're a senior.
Right.
But also being able to give girls kind of an encyclopedia of, like, hey, here are your choices. They can think about that from 6th grade until 12th grade.
Right.
That's 6 years.
Right. It's a long time.
Hmm.
It's a long time. And I really will say, like, the secret sauce is our teachers. It always is. Like, our teachers are the best. Like, the best. They are experts in their field. They care about the girls. They
Wow.
care about them learning. And I mean, there is not one bad teacher on our campus. They are all phenomenal. They work together with a common theme of the girls. They sponsor, there's not a lot of financial reward in doing extra things that you don't have to do as a teacher, like sponsoring debate club or sponsoring interact club or sponsoring DI. But the the teachers see that the students want to do that, and that is part of our process. And so the teachers show up and help
I
at
know.
no financial benefit to themselves,
Well,
really, honestly.
teachers across the board are doing that. I mean, my mom would show up at class in her classroom at like 5:45 in the
Hmm.
morning, and like right after dropping me off at swim practice, and then she would stay in her classroom until like 7 o'clock at night
Right.
so that her next day was better
Right.
for her students. And like I remember she would do summer school specifically so that she could buy extra school supplies, because she was the gifted and talented math and science teacher
Right.
for Idea Academy before
Right.
she was the principal or vice principal. And so it's just so interesting what teachers do. And it does take a special heart and special
Hmm.
person to want to teach kids. But also, like, no offense to this generation, but like I'm seeing it as a swim coach myself. This generation is like, they're smarter.
Hmm.
They're smarter than anyone, I think, that we've been able to
Yeah.
see previously
Their
to this
access to
generation.
information alone.
I know. And like the way that they think too,
Hmm.
their brains are more advanced, I feel like. And there's a lot of things that they're asking that we don't even have the answers
Right.
to. And in order to really help this generation, we have to be able to make sure that we're giving back to our community,
Right.
to make sure that they have the resources to be able to solve the problems that we don't even know we have yet.
Correct.
Great. So, last question. What gives you hope for the future of Midland? You were saying that nonprofit involvement is a big part of that. What specifically about nonprofits and the generosity of Midland gives you hope?
Yeah, there's a lot that gives me hope
Mhm.
about Midland. I love Midland. I did not grow up here, and I've lived all over the country. And we chose Midland there, and we've had opportunities to leave Midland to go to really fun, fabulous places, and we've
Mhm.
chosen to stay because of the people and because of the generosity. And one thing that really gives me hope right now is seeing all the young people involved. I mean, like you, like starting this podcast,
Yeah.
like getting
Thank
involved
you.
and getting involved in the public schools. And we had our first ever fundraiser 2 weeks ago. And, thank
Congratulations.
you. It was awesome. Miss Texas came.
Oh,
Our
cool.
girls did amazing. And one of the things that was so heartening to me, and I've been in fundraising for my entire career, is, at a fundraiser, you do a direct appeal ask. And sometimes it's very awkward when you do that direct appeal ask. And sometimes you have to, sort of like be okay with the silence. But I did a very soft direct appeal ask, hardly even asked. And we raised $10,000 in the room, and it was from a variety of sources. We had people giving us $25. And that gives me hope that someone is willing to come to an event of a school they've never heard for
Mhm.
and give me $25. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the depth of the donor base that we got that came to that event. So
That's
I think
awesome.
there's hope in the generosity and the foundations. I think you're seeing a lot of transition in foundations that were formed, in the mid-century and now have not changed partnerships, changed executive directors because they've retired. My friend Mary Ann is over at the Scarborough
Mhm.
Foundation, um, and she is going to bring a unique skill set
Mhm.
to bring that foundation to even better distribute the resources that it has. So,
Bloomberg was talking about that this is going to be the next biggest, was actually going to be the biggest transfer of wealth
hmm
from, baby boomers
hmm
to their children who
hmm
are Gen X, I think is what they call it. They're 35 to 45 years old, generation, then millennials.
right,
So it's going to be very interesting to see what values that the new generation brings in to
right,
refresh our community.
right.
Well, thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate hanging out with you. You're just like a very incredible,
Thank
like
you.
Renaissance woman. It's
Well,
so neat. I
it's
wish I
so
could
nice to
pick your
meet you.
brain about your days in DC. It'd be
Okay, I would
interesting.
love to do that anytime. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Anytime. Thank you so much for joining us. And be sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel because that's where we're going to do a little bit more promotions this year. And then also our Instagram and our LinkedIn. Thanks. Bye.